Is saving the planet a national or a state issue? Okay. So environmental issues in the United States, right now the biggest one is climate change, which is the warming of the earth. And the United States has in part caused this because it's the second largest producer of greenhouse gases as of 2018, and it's also an economic leader in all of the activities that produce the most greenhouse gases. And climate change is a serious threat. The effects of it are wildfires, tropical storms, flooding, so it's very serious. And so the federal versus the state government, it's very different. The federal government withdrew the United States from the Paris Climate Accord in 2017 and also reversed almost 100 rules intent on protecting the environment. And state governments actually tend to, in a report actually done by the Pew Research Center, Democrats are a lot more likely to act on this issue than Republicans are. So states that are red or blue, depending on that, are more likely to create pro-climate legislation. And in order for our planet to stay safe, the federal government must take charge of environmental issues and create regulations on greenhouse gas emissions that every state, regardless of their political ideologies, must obey. So federalism and the environment. We need to employ a dual or layer cake federalist system to take control of the environmental crisis that's happening right now. So the power to legislate about the environment must be a power held only by Congress. The Supremacy Clause, which is in the Constitution, it doesn't relate directly to environmental issues because the Founding Fathers did not anticipate this, but it says that all laws are the supreme law of the land, laws passed by the federal government, and this can be used to enforce anti-climate change legislation. And the Alaska versus Environmental Protection Agency is a Supreme Court case that we're going to get into on the next slide. And the Clean Air Act is also another big part of that Supreme Court case. So this was a case in 2004, and an Alaskan company received a permit to operate a zinc mine that would release greenhouse gas emissions, but the Clean Air Act required the company to be up to date with the best pollution prevention technology, and that company was not. So the EPA came after them, and the Supreme Court ruled that the Clean Air Act sets a level of air quality that each state has to meet, and if the states don't meet this level while they're handing out permits like this to private companies, then the EPA can overrule the permit. And this gave more power to the federal government, the EPA, to legislate and to control, not to legislate, to control environmental issues. And I think this is really important because it acts as an unbiased check on how states are treating legislation like the Clean Air Act. And then this is a picture of the mine that was involved in the court case, the Red Dog Mine. So positive and negative effects. A really good thing about the federal government regulating environmental issues is that the Supremacy Clause makes sure that all states would obey environmental legislation. But if people who are in power, for example, right now, President Trump does not see climate change as a serious threat, so nothing is really being done. In fact, things are actually being undone to protect the environment. So that's a really serious problem. And state governments regulating environmental issues, it is good because they know they have specific actions that they can take to control the effects of climate change in their community. But a negative would be that they don't necessarily have the power to control the big picture in a way that the federal government does under the Supremacy Clause. Rebuttals. Science, the states know best. In some cases they do, but for the most part, states, about half and half, I would say, states are supporting climate legislation and the other half are pretty dormant about it. So we need the federal government to unite us on this issue and 25 states supporting the environment is great, but 50 would be so much better, and that's something only the federal government has the power to do. And the 10th Amendment actually reads that all the powers not given to Congress in the Constitution should go to the states. And you could argue that since environmental legislation is not an expressed power, then it should go to the states. But Congress actually does have the power to regulate commerce. And a big part of commerce is products that rely on fossil fuels like cars, as well as fossil fuels themselves. So Congress can regulate this. They can limit the production of cars and of other harmful products. And yeah. And in conclusion, climate legislation has to be passed by the federal government. Since the issue is so often divided along party lines, we need to be unified by an unbiased group of people that rely on scientific findings to decide these issues and the legislation that follows, and a dual federalist approach will be best both for our planet and for our communities. Thank you so much.